Hi, this is Ken and Michelle Bass.
And you're listening to the Resilient Parenting Podcast.
Hi there, Ken and Michelle, back with another episode. And this one is just maybe more timely than some of the others, you think?
That's the word I was thinking. Yeah, something happened in our community, and we wanted to bring some support. We had the shooting that happened in Twin Falls.
Yeah.
And there was a great article that came out from the executive director of Nami here in Idaho, Beth Markley. And you actually reached out. I appreciate that. And Beth was gracious enough to join us and talk about some things that we can do as a community and as parents to support each other. And there's a lot of great resources that I have added into the show notes, so make sure that you check those out as well. So let's get started. Well, welcome. We are super excited to be joined once again by Beth Markley, Executive Director of Nami Idaho. And for those of you who may say, well, what is NAMI? NAMI stands for National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we are super happy to have you back. And Ken, actually, you saw something from NAMI that
Beth had posted something, sharing something from Nami
Yes.
about, concerning the tragedy in Twin Falls recently that, of course, has been all over social media and the news. And lots of different interpretations coming from different people and how to deal with it. And that's one thing that you were talking about in this, the post you did on social media.
Right.
And that's why we wanted to contact you and get it firsthand.
Yes, and for those resources for our families that are experiencing this tragedy and other things that have been going on, how do you manage it, and then also and also parent, and how do you manage it with your kids? So thank you for joining us to talk about this really important topic.
Sure, it's my pleasure, and I want to say, our hearts are still like just really heavy with the news out of Twin Falls, and especially with the news about who the victims were and what those families are going through right now. And when something like this happens, as the director of the statewide organization, I just feel like we have a role to play in addressing that impact of community trauma. It's something that is inevitable. It's unfortunately in the world we live in, not only can happen, in because of acts of mass violence like this, but natural disasters, pandemics, things like that, and people are scrambling for resources all of a sudden. So I over the weekend, and it's also part of my own healing as well, to be able to say, what can I do? Just spent a lot of time thinking about things, and our national organization reached out and said, what can we do to help? And unfortunately, other state organizations have gone through similar tragedies before, so they all came together and gave me their resources that they had shared with their state. So it was very helpful to be part of that. So I put together this article. It's on our website. It's a op-ed in a number of different publications this week, including the Statesman and Idaho Ed News, and I think the Times News is going to be posting it tomorrow, which includes a list of resources and just dealing with the impacts of community trauma. It's something that unfortunately there's the immediate impact, and then there's the long-term effect. And I think, with your audience being particularly concerned about resilient parenting, I think there's some ways that we can respond. in this instance as parents and as adults and as community members, to lessen that impact and just come together as a community, which can be so healing.
All right.
Now, when it comes to parenting and kids, how young do you think kids can be and be affected by this? As early as toddler age?
It's interesting, and I will just preface here that I am not a clinician. I am a parent. I work, in the mental health field. So, but I did want to put that out there that I'm not offering professional advice, but I am going to point to some resources that will point to it. At every age, I think open and direct communication is important. Whatever the age is, children learn. The first thing they learn is they key on to our emotions and our faces. And whatever we are doing as parents, we can't really hide those emotions and those reactions. And it serves to make young people feel less stable and maybe more worried. And the younger the child is, the more in tune they are with your face, and the more self-centered they're going to be about, like, what's the impact to me personally? When is this going to happen in my life? If you take a look at a website called the childmind.org, there is a section on helping children cope after a traumatic event by age. And there are tips on how to help children as ages 0 to 2. So there are strategies for communication, and it starts out with take note of how you're reacting, and it's important to be calm, and recognize that at different ages, children are going to respond to traumatic events by signs that they're feeling insecure. Maybe they get a little bit more clingy. Maybe they get a little bit whiny, they're acting out in certain ways, and those are appropriate to the age. So if you take a look at that, I think communicating in terms of, what a child can understand, and just reassuring them that you're there to keep them safe as a parent, I think is very important. And not to minimize anything, but to recognize it and call it out in a way that's appropriate.
Absolutely. I will put that in the show notes, thechildmind.org. And you brought up for the parent to kind of be that security and to start with self. And what I really liked about the article was really talking about what you can do. So a lot of parents may be listening right now going, but I don't feel safe. So what are some things that you said in the article that to start with self, and then we could move into then how to support the kids? Because we talk all the time about you have to put the mask on yourself first before you can help others.
Yes, absolutely. Recognizing the impact to ourselves first and foremost, and acknowledging those feelings. It feels hard because it is hard. And give yourself some grace for the moment, and maybe try to voice what you're experiencing, and recognizing that we are in a place in time where we get constant streams of media information, and yet at the same time, and I'm not going to bash on the media, they're doing their jobs, but they have very little information to go on. So at times like these, we may be seeing the same images over and over again because they don't have anything new to report. And sometimes those images are highly disturbing, and they're coming at you over and over again. And your brain might be processing that as something that is near and anxiety producing, because you're faced with it all the time. So recognizing the impact of constant media exposure, and maybe turn it off when you feel like you've had enough information and there's nothing new. Take a walk, go out and do those things that keep your brain occupied with something else. What's going on? Notice the nature around you. How is your body feeling? You get those cortisol spikes, and everything is colored by that. So taking a moment to recognize the impact to you, and doing some things that help you uh, calm down a little bit, because the little ones around you are going to recognize that, and maybe take a moment to explain to the people in your life, like, look, at I am deeply impacted by what's going on right here, and I'm recognizing that in myself, and so I'm going to take healthy measures to address those things. And you know what, you give people the permission to use their own healthy coping measures too.
I love that you bring that in, because that's one of the things that we talked about this on another episode, about a lot of times parents try to protect their child from the different stressors in the world, and it actually ends up being more stressful, because they can tell, like you said before, it by your face or body language or whatever, that something's wrong, but they don't know what it is. And so then they're catastrophizing, and they're thinking it's them, and they're thinking, so then they're thinking, I'm not safe. But to be able to recognize it in yourself, be able to speak in age appropriate terms to your child, and then say, and this is what I can do to help me. Do you want to go for a walk with me? Let's both go, and let's go find rocks, or whatever it is. I love that.
That's modeling really good coping strategies, really good resiliency strategies to your child. And I can't think of anything better. And in fact, this notion that we can protect our children from information that is difficult for them to process is a complete myth. And if you don't address it, somebody's going to fill that void for your child. It might be another student, it might be social media, it might be hate speech, somebody guessing at the race or ethnicity or religion of the shooter that is totally wrong and inappropriate. So even if you don't know that they know, raising the conversation, again, age appropriately, by saying, I don't know if you've heard this, but I wondered if you had, and maybe we can discuss it. Getting out in front of it is critical. But the thought that you'd be able to protect your child no matter what is just a myth.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Michelle mentioned age appropriate language with the kids. Are there certain key phrases or words that we do want to avoid, or it depends on the age, I guess, but any tips?
Again, with I'd have to go educate myself, because it's been a while since I've had young ones. But I would say avoid minimalizing or putting a positive spin, like, oh, everything happens for a reason, or I'm sure God has a plan. I know sometimes people feel comfortable with that, but the reality is, bad things happen. You're safe. Mom's safe. Dad's safe. Let's do something that helps us feel a little bit better, connecting with our community, or, here's some strategies that I'm using to feel better. And again, just in the language that you would use. And it's very similar to, describing something difficult to your child about the death of a family member or a pet, or, illness or financial insecurity. So all of those things are hard to talk about. Hiding them doesn't work. And helping them, modeling that resiliency in yourself is going to be so important. If they're smaller, using, big words, talking about the impact to yourself and what your hopes and dreams are for them. But don't trivialize or what it was the term, toxic positivity. Don't resort to that, because I just don't think that that's super helpful. Yeah. I will say, no matter the age, once a traumatic event happens, the importance of routine is very high, right? So routine tells your body that you are safe. So making sure that meals are on time, and everybody's going to school, and that you're adhering to your normal family routine, that can help reset those cortisol levels and anxiety levels in the family. And yeah, things will take a while to get back to normal after a trauma.
Absolutely. And I was just thinking that one of the things that you had brought up before, when you're having, trying to get back to normal, is recognizing if your child is more clingy or is needing a little extra support, to be able to give
them what they need, but also like recognizing it in yourself, like to give yourself extra. And a lot of times I hear, I'm going to push through it, acknowledge it, notice it, feel it, name it, and still continue to live your life. Avoiding it is not necessarily the answer as well. Like noticing it, and then I'm going to make a conscious decision to continue with our routine, and we're okay, or whatever it is. But to recognize if you need extra love, if your kids need extra cuddles.
You bet. We need to be kind to ourselves. And also recognizing this isn't a one off. This was one horrific event, but the repercussions are going to come back and hit us again and again as more information comes out, as anniversaries come and go. And we may be back at where we are today with dealing with the the feelings, the hard feelings and the anxiety and the feelings of lack of safety and insecurity. And our kids may too. So, paying attention to how they're behaving and recognizing that there's something underneath that. And maybe we just need to take a little bit more time, turn off the media, go for a walk, sit down with your child, show them the things that you do for self-care. You can involve them in some of those things too. If you're going to a vigil, if you're making a contribution to a GoFundMe campaign, if you're saying a prayer, you can involve your child in those things, and that gives them the sense of agency, which returns that feeling of power, and security that wasn't there before. And I wouldn't minimize those things at all, because they can be powerful. Yeah.
Oh, we going back to what you said about feeling safe, and I was thinking about tragedies of the past we've dealt with as parents, like 9/11 and things like that happened. It was very, very important then to remind the kids that they are safe. We are safe. And I think that's probably maybe the strongest word you can use in all this is safe.
Yeah. And I read something really interesting about how younger children process information. So you might want to assure kids that, well, bad things happen, put them into perspective. You're seeing a lot of it on television, but it's one event.
Yeah, I will admit that, you brought up 9/11, and I remember there were a couple of big events that I avoided because I was scared. I was scared to go and bring my kids there because I didn't know, I didn't feel safe. And I noticed a difference when I would go out in public. And so, I didn't know what I know now, but I can think back and go, oh, okay. I was like hyper vigilant, so noticing that too, especially, I'm thinking of folks that, in Twin Falls, for instance, or others that have experienced it even closer, than, for us, where all of us probably know someone who was impacted directly by it. But being there, I don't know, like when it happened in the mall, it was strange to go to the mall. And do you know what I mean?
I
So
do.
I don't know if there's if you, in your research, if there was anything about helping you kind of get through some of that, or just to recognize that that's normal.
I would say I think it behooves all of us to be prepared for something like this to happen. I can tell you that NAMI has recently developed a training called Trauma Insight, and I'll put the link in the chat as well so that you can share it. It's free. You don't have to be a member of NAMI. You can just take it as a self-paced course, and it's particularly for teachers, counselors, but I think parents. I'm going to take it just to have some of that, those skills and tools just in the back of my mind, because we do live in a time when not only do things happen that are difficult to process, but we have access to stuff all over the world that's disturbing. So we'll see it daily if we open ourselves up to it. And I think we just need to be prepared, and be prepared as parents and community members to be able to reach out and support each other. And I also wanted to say, with regard to our friends who live in Twin Falls, they will be dealing with this trauma for a long time, as we said. And even after all of the media is gone and all the questions have been answered, they will still be living. They'll still have to go to work. They'll still be, going to that in and out and passing that very heavily, populated corner, that highly trafficked corner. They'll be living with this for a long time, and just reaching out to our friends in Twin Falls and making sure, like, we see you, we're still thinking about you, we want to make sure that you're okay. And the other point is the amount of resiliency that comes from people connecting and supporting each other. When I'm feeling bad, I get so much power and so much healing from doing something proactively. Something that makes me, focus on my own health, but also maybe doing something good in the community, supporting somebody, writing a letter, making a donation, doing some sort of service. Those are healing acts, because we can't control everything, but we can control some things. And those things that are within our power will build that resiliency in our own selves.
I love that. And like you said, including the kids in that so they can experience that as well. This has been really good information, and we will have all of the resources that were discussed today in the show notes. And then if anyone has any questions, I'll also have the link to your website. And then national, if we could also do the national, because we have folks that listen from other parts of the country as well, to be able to contact your local NAMI organization to get the resources that you need as well. So thank you so much.
I'll include the Nami Helpline, which you can reach out and get in touch with your local affiliate anywhere in the country.
Oh,
absolutely.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you for being proactive and posting that letter.
Well, it's like I said, it's part of my own healing. Feeling like I could do something, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you both about that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks again.
This podcast is brought to you by the Idaho Children's Trust Fund,